Hello, 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 hello. Hi. So, welcome back to my channel. I was gonna hold do this bit. I was gonna do this whole bit, but it would have been in poor taste. So, anyway, I'm here, and I made a community post earlier today. If you're watching this close to time of the live, it'll be up. It's only 24 hours, so it might not be if you watch it later. Excuse me. I've been like very yawny today. I've been very tired. I also woke up kind of early today because I had a call with my journey buddy. We did a 2-day catch up. Uh, we chatted for a little bit yesterday and then we followed up today, or we did part 2 today. And I've been making some changes in my own life that they kind of sort of just happened, but they didn't. Like, I've been acquiring things with the intention of eventually doing them or using them or whatever, right? But one day I was just like, well, let's just start. And I've been surprisingly consistent. Maybe Saturn in Pisces is going to give me the whatever I've been missing, like almost literally my whole life, to have a little bit more consistency and follow through with like things that kind of sort of actually matter. Well, it's very like the things that I want to do and the things that I need to do don't necessarily align type of energy. Don't always necessarily align type of energy. But I got up early, long story short. And I was talking to my journey buddy today, and she was talking about a realization that she's had. Um, and I was telling her about, like, I feel like I'm in this almost multi lesson mode, or I've been in this multi lesson era. Also, speaking of eras, I'm in my 720p laptop webcam era because it's convenient and it's easy. Um, and I don't have a I don't have a standard of quality, so I get to do that, which is great. But anyway, and like in the multi lesson era, it's like there are many things that I'm sort of like holding on to. Not holding on to, like learning and applying at the same time as I live life and as I discover who I am, I guess, really. For not the first, like, there have been different periods of discovery as I've concluded major themes in my life. Like, if you watch the video I posted probably around December 16th, December 12th, 16, 15, maybe 20, when I like, hey, Holly, how you doing? When I finished my assignment, um, 2022 was a year of like major conclusions, like concluding major cycles and like mini cycles. And like the first part of 2022, I had my first Saturn pass. I think Saturn passed me for the first time. And that was very, for me, it was very like, these are all the ways that you've been restricting yourself. These are all the boundaries, limitations, whatever that Saturn represents. Like, these are the ways that you do it to you. And so I had to work through that, which was fun. Um, and then around my second pass, the second pass was like, in some ways, it was the karma of Saturn, but not really. The second pass, when it hit me and Saturn was retrograde, it was very like, these are things that I've experienced in the past, and these are the ways that they affect me in the present and the what was then present. And some of those things I didn't know that they affected me as much as they did. until a situation would present itself, and then I would like reflexively do something, or I would reflexively think something. And because I have the conversations with myself and the self awareness and the desire to really get the things that I want in life and out of life, I was able to more real time sort of like recognize where that response was coming from. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I did not think it affected me to the degree that it affected me and all of the ways that it affected me. Like when it concluded, and there was nothing that really happened in my life that triggered it. So it was almost like these dormant landmines that were being stepped on. And there's explosions all over the yard. And I'm like, what's happening? And then it's like, girl, like you're living in Minesweeper. Like you didn't know. I was fortunate enough to not click any of the mines when I was just click, 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 clicking all over the board. Um, you're fabulous. Glad to hear it. There we go. Rocky energies popping up all day, but you've successfully navigated them. Cheers to successful navigation of rocky energies. Um, I have the void. Oh, I love this. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Shout out to synchronicity. Ooh. I cried today. I did not expect it. My journey buddy made me cry in the most beautiful way. Ooh. The biome connection is at the bottom of the deck of the elemental oracle. And ether, the void, is at the bottom of the wild unknown alchemy. I'm doing elemental alchemy today. Alchemy. I mean, yeah, alchemy. Elementals. We're just gonna pull because I want to. So that was the second pass. Like when Saturn was in retrograde, it was like revealing all of these minds that I didn't know were there. Honestly, did not know they were there. And it seemed like again, like since I hadn't encountered any triggers in that area, it of course I felt relatively unaffected. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, I didn't know my foot was broken until I tried to walk to the bathroom or to walk anywhere. I'm laying in bed all day. I thought my foot was fine. Who knew? Um, so that was like the second pass of my Saturn return. The third pass was the conclusion of all of that. It was almost more like and my third pass was when Saturn went direct. Now it's in Pisces. So not going back for another 28 to 30 years. Um, but anyway, the third pass was like the conclusion. It felt like it was in hindsight, it felt like the void that's at the bottom of this deck is just like coming to my mind right now. It was a void period. It felt like a buffer space to like come down off of everything that preceded that conclusion. Like and like again 2022 was like the year of like because of all of that in my Saturn return, and then also like Uranus is just transiting in between my rising and moon right now, so it's in my first house of self. um Brain, I have the thoughts but I feel like I can't get them. If that makes anything, if that makes any sense. Also, Mercury is in Pisces, and my Pisces is natally Mercury in retrograde. Mercury is like probably in Aries now. It'll be in Aries soon, I think. My Mercury is natally in Pisces retrograde in my 12th house, and a sign that it doesn't like, in a house that it doesn't want to be in. So I feel like I'm extra tongue tied, but also I'm kind of like this all the time sometimes. So. I love that analogy. So it was like this buffer space of like concluding, wrapping up all of the conclusions. It's almost like what's your final takeaway? It was like that. Partially like any questions at the end of this presentation, also partially like, okay, like write out your 5, 10, however many takeaways from like everything that just happened, because like those takeaways and those questions and those like answers to the questions are going to be important for going into the next session, and the next session is the next phase, the next chapter of my life. um and it's one that is extremely different. But so anyway, I was talking to my journey buddy and she was telling me about a revelation that she's had about, like, and for her it was like 10 years ago, but it was a revelation that she had about, there was this time period in her life where a lot, like, she experienced a lot of firsts, and then like there were events that also like happened at the same time. And so it was, she said like today, like this morning, she got a revelation about like 10 years ago about how all of that stuff played with each other and how it created a very complex sort of, very complex but also like fairly unseen network of whatever it caused for her. Not caused, but like all those, it's like with some of the things, because she was so new to it, it created a foundation of certain truths. And now her today, she can see how like some of the things that she couldn't necessarily see a connection to, or some of the, she's been getting answers to some of the questions that she's been asking for a minute. She actually inspired my community post where I was like, seems like there's it was like, seems like or feels like dreams are like these future realities slash future potentialities, and they're starting to come true. um because like the energy, girl, I can just be like the energy of like what's happening and transpiring. And again, like it very much so plays off of that, the movement magic in the moon that came up last time I was live. Didn't realize that until I went to make the community post, and I scrolled down because I've made a few 24-hour posts. So I was like, what's like permanent? And the first one I find on my phone is just like dark matter. And I click it and I blow it up. And it was magnetism, dark matter, and air. And those were the cards that just like were chilling. Um, and I was like, I literally just saw that dark matter card, the magnetism and air, because it came out with movement. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, because there was movement in that air card. But anyway, um, like I was telling her about like, I feel like I'm in this really complex phase. Not phase. I was in this really complex space because there were things that I had learned that were seemingly contradicting other things. It's not that they were necessarily contradicting each other, but it's like there were multiple like things that I had learned, and I had concluded and ended multiple things like all within the span of a very short amount of time. And I felt like there were some moments and times where it was like, I'm doing this for this reason, but I'm not doing that for the other reason, and I can't do this and that at the same time. Like, what do I do? And it's not anything major, but in talking with her about it, she helped me unravel it. Probably just like in talking about it, honestly, it helped me unravel it rather than just like kind of sort of thinking about it sometimes. Um, but anyway, So like I told you about the conversation I had with my host slash best friend um a few days before I left London. That like shook me in a way that I did not expect to necessarily be shaken. And so at first it didn't really at first like I sort of recognized it for what it was and I was like, okay. But it's been like marinating. It's been sitting with me. And it's been not necessarily wreaking havoc. Um More than anything, it's just a reminder to to be open to receiving the things that I'm asking for and to not sell myself short or to not ask for less because I think it might be too much, if that makes any sense. But the way that like I was holding on to that realization, I was treating it as more than it was. And that's something that talking to my journey buddy helped me realize. Because while there was truth in it, the advice that I received was like advice for somebody who's not me, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to be like, I'm not standard or ordinary. I'm extraordinary. I'm different. The vibes are just like different. I'm a Pisces. And just like loved by the universe, because we're so connected or whatever. Um, but I was like, man, maybe I should be doing this and doing that. I was thinking it kind of sort of. Because did I do any of it? No. um, but I was talking to her and she was like, like it was solid and it was coming from a good place, I'm sure. But like some of that, like she was like, that doesn't feel like you. And I was like, I know. And usually, like, I listen to it and I just like, it's not in one ear and out the other, but it's like I listen to it. If it fits, I put it on the shelf. If it's too big, then it goes to somebody else who has the space for it. And I was like, but for some reason, like it's sticking with me and I don't know why. And when I was talking to her, there's also like, it's also what's sticking. And I mentioned this because part of what I concluded, it's tied to like part of what I concluded in 2022. And it's also linked to the next phase, next chapter. So that's why it was like sitting with me a little bit because it was triggering up or like the situation itself. And that's been another thing. Well, now that Saturn is in Pisces, maybe that like review period is over if it's all linked to the Saturn return. Again, like I've been going through my Saturn return and I got Uranus like in a very personal position transiting in my chart right now. And it's gonna be there for a minute because my moon is like late Taurus. Um, but when it's like it's gonna be a whole thing. Um, and so that's like sometimes I'm like, I don't know what's me and like what's the collective. Excuse me. I feel like I've been doing decent with like catching a thought once it leaves. But so what was I talking about? It seems like the post, like the last few degrees of Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, are like the conclusion, the wrap up of my Saturn return. Like that was one of the things that, yeah, it was like these situations. Like when I went to London, there was like a few things like when I was in London, and there have been a few situations since, not many, but like a few. And there was actually one at the end of last year where it's like I feel like I'm in a similar position in life in some ways, but the situations are different. I'm different. So it's like completely different. Like from the outside, it might look similar, but it isn't. That was also a theme, probably late 2019 into 2020. I think if I recall correctly, where it's like I feel like I'm doing some of the things that I used to do in the past. I was like, I feel like I'm doing some of the things that like an unhealed version of me would do, but like the motivations and the reasonings behind it are completely different. Like I'm not doing it from a place of fear or doing it from a place of being like overly self-protected or a dedication to an isolationism. And so like even though it might look like in certain situations I'm making the same choices and decisions, like I'm not, because they're motivated by like self-love and love for others and like all that, mystical woo-woo, love and light stuff. But like for real though, it's just like there's a difference between like trauma response and like a boundary, like establishing and enforcing a boundary. There are differences. Um, but anyway, I'm trying to maintain this thought. There were a few things where it's like I was put as I am now in a situation from the past. And like being able to recognize it and like make a different choice has been like retraining my brain and establishing connections between, it's almost like if all of your muscles in your body and your skeletal system, muscular skeletal system, whatever. I didn't take anatomy because I had a lab and I wasn't trying to dissect anything. And the anatomy without a lab was full. So I dropped it after the first day. But it's like every twitch and every movement of every muscle in our body is there's like a corresponding port for the plug in the brain. And it's like we're unplugging things and we're like detangling it and then we're reconnecting. It feels like, I guess, in that way, it almost plays on a neuroplasticity and how, like, when we establish routines and habits and patterns, it gets easier for our brain to just like have it do the thing. Repetition helps us do it easier and not take up so many like mental resources and faculties like in the process, right? I'm like really trying to hold on to this thread and I keep losing it, but finding it. Um, And so in that way, it was, but like, and it was like in the way that I make choices and decisions in the way that I live my life. So just like when I pulled those cards for me in the Knight of Pentacles had a more like reactionary energy. And it was like, okay, it's like it's time to stop being reactive and to like actually start living slash be proactive. It's kind of that. But anyway, after talking to her for a few minutes, and when she said that, I was like, like usually I just like it goes not in one ear and out the other, but like I listen, I process it. If it fits, I keep it. If it doesn't, I'll let it go. And I was like, usually I do that, but I'm not letting it go this time. It's just like sitting with me and I'm talking to her. And then I'm like, maybe like the reason why it's sitting with me is because it's something for me to recognize. It's something for me to realize. It plays on that 2022 like these things don't affect you anymore to the degree that they used to, so you don't have to live your life the same way. You don't have to refuse opportunity or like go through all of this, like create this strenuous mental whatever that keeps you from doing basically anything besides sleeping and eating and playing video games and watching anime. Um like those restrictions aren't there anymore. And it was more so for me to realize that those restrictions aren't there so that if opportunity does arise, that I can actually process the opportunity for what it is rather than shutting it down because it's far from home and I'm scared. Um, it's just like know that I've already proven to myself that I'm capable. And if I want it, I can have it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's for me. It doesn't mean that it's for me to go do. Like it's not sitting with me because like, oh my gosh, like I should be pursuing this opportunity in this way and following his 10,000 step plan for guaranteed success when nothing is guaranteed in life besides, the things that are guaranteed, but the things that are guaranteed come with a certain alignment. So it helped me realize that. And then when I was talking to her, I was like, it's almost like in my emotional, mental, spiritual, energetic, whatever body, there were like these knots. because I've been using the massage chairs lately. The first time I tried a massage chair, it beat me. Oh, it beat me up. I was like, oh my gosh. But when I got off the chair, I felt amazing. And it hasn't beat me like that since. So there was some stuff that was just like really knotted up in there. Um, but it was like there were these like knots and these areas of tension in my like overall like less physical body that might have some parallels to physical or whatever, but it was like it's mental, emotional, kind of sort of spiritual, but not really. It was like the mental, emotional affects the body's ability to receive spirit in some way, but like anyway. And like that happened just to like massage those out, to release the tension, to get the body in a state of like, I want to say recipiency, but I don't think recipiency is a word. To get the body ready to receive. I know like recipients. Is recipients a word? Maybe. If not, you know what I mean. Um, and just to like not have that blockage there. It wasn't necessarily for me to do. It was just like, hey, like be aware of this. And then it was like really know this. And then I kept talking to her and she made like she said one comment to me. And it was the I feel like it was the most affirming. I feel like it was the most affirming thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And it was something that like I knew, but because she was also like before we reached that part in our conversation, she was like, I'm so glad I've gotten to like do the entirety of this journey with you. And I was like, girl, me too, because it ain't necessarily everybody that we get to start and finish with, or that we're necessarily with for however long of a period of time. Um, but she made a comment that like let me know that she's been listening to me this whole time, and that like she's really been in my corner. And it's like it's not that it's empty at all, and it's not that it's unappreciated, or it's not that I don't appreciate it at all, but like when someone makes a comment that's like, oh, you've grown so much, like you're so strong, like this, that, it's appreciated and I see it for what it is. But for some reason today, it just like it hit me different. Whereas like she's really seen me and she's been here the whole time. And it just like it broke me. I cried. I was like, wow, I did not expect to cry today. Um, but it was gorgeous. It was beautiful. Like I know it's not necessarily the case, and I know a lot of people like want it, but I really hope that more people find people like that. Like the people that I've met in this community have been like amazing. And it's nice to have, like people, but like when it's someone that you know personally who knew you before, it's almost like it doesn't hit different, but it's like she knew me before like I did any of this. She was the person like literally I would work a lot of night shifts in school. When I was in school, I would work a lot of night shifts and she would be awake. So the people who were awake when I was up became some of my closest friends. Because like what else are you gonna do at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning besides, like hang out and talk or whatever? And like I was at work, so I was glad to have somebody to help like keep me awake. But one day she was like, Patrick, I think you might be depressed. And I was like, yeah, like you're not wrong, but also I'm not gonna do anything about it. Um, and so like when I say that like she's been there the whole time and like she knows some of these things, like that's why. And she would like always encourage me to do what I can do to move the needle forward or whatever. But for the first chunk of her knowing me, like, I just wouldn't. Um, but yeah, it was really big. And like, there are other people in my personal life who like I went to school with, like elementary school, middle school, high school, college, like people around town, people that I've connected to over the years who are like also on their own paths and on their own journeys. And so, like, not to like gloat or boast or whatever, like, part of me is like, I understand that not everyone has that. And so I want to recognize that. But like, it's been so valuable to me. Um, and I'm glad that it showed me that I don't have to do this alone. I'm glad I don't carry that mentality. But it also helps, like, when, like, and I don't really have like a secret to, I feel like what's your secret to a successful like relationship with someone else who's also like on a healing journey? Be that like, I mean, it's platonic, obviously, because I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm into dudes and she's not a dude. So that's not the only reason why like we aren't together, but like it's anyway. It's platonic, but it's still a relationship. Um, it's just like, if I had to, the things that work for us beyond just like the amount of time that we've known each other, because we didn't know each other for longer than we've known each other. Um, Oof. Well, if I live for a few more years, I won't be able to say that. That won't be true. Because I would have met her when I was about 19, and I'm 30 now. So in what, 8 years, it'll be half of my life. But anyway, it's like it's a level of compassion, and it's an air. It's like a space to be vulnerable, a space to be human, a space to grow, but also a space to like dream and aspire. And so we can like I feel like we do a good job of not projecting onto each other in a way where it's like I don't hold her accountable or responsible for like if she says something and I get triggered, like I know that trigger is on me, if that makes any sense. And so it's not this weird like battle of egos. Like our egos have never clashed ever because we don't have that type of relationship. It's like when you know that someone's like truly has your best interest at heart and they would never intentionally do anything or say anything to like hurt you or to demean you or put you down. It's like if she makes a comment that like hurts or if it cuts a little bit, if it stings, there's a wound. And rather than like reflexively like whatever, like we explore it or I'll talk about it with her because it's not like she didn't inflict the wound on me, you know? And I, like I said, like I don't like she's not that kind of person. We don't have that type of dynamic. So, and I don't know, it's just I don't it's just like we're friends. I don't know. Like nobody asked. I feel like I can't, it's just like be open to being a person and realize that the other person is a person and like really truly genuinely honestly like I think too, and it's something that I've discovered with the flavor of shadow work that I do, question mark, I guess, ever since especially like March 2020. Like I don't offload or dump intentionally. Or I since I don't do it intentionally, I've gotten better at doing not doing it unintentionally slash like subconsciously and consciously. Like there isn't this like if my mind is a house, there isn't a closet or a room that is like dark that I shove everything in, I lock the door and I never go in there. And I slide a plate under the door to feed the beast. Like that's what also changed. Like when that changed for me, my dynamic with like my ego and my shadow or whatever completely changed because it's not this part of me that's responsible for like bearing the brunt of trauma with no therapist, with nobody to like process through it with. And so it just like reacts because that's the only way that it's heard or we pay attention to it. I pay attention to it. But because I don't do that anymore, I don't do that anymore. Like I can't do that anymore. I can't just like hold stuff and like repress it and push it down because it's like there's no lid for the jar to like twist it on. So like if I shake it up, it's just gonna go everywhere. You know what I mean? But anyway, back to these. Or not back to these. It was gonna be a whole 40 minutes. Um yeah, it's been this really interesting and she was even saying like our processing power and processing speed has increased. Um especially hers. Where it's like, because like the nature of some of these realizations, it's very deep and it's very profound and it's very potent. But because it's so like deep, profound, and potent, there's like a lot of emotion and a lot of lived life behind it. Where it's like if this would have triggered like a spiral that lasted for a week, 2 weeks of like the darkest nights, we don't have the same reaction to a lot of that anymore. She doesn't. And like she's mentioned before, she was like, it was something before where like it kind of like knocked her off for like a day or 2 days. And she was like, wow, like I'm processing through this like so quickly. But like, and now when we have conversations, we literally like process it right then and there in real time. And she was like, like this came to me and like I'm already processing it. Because it was huge. She was like, something like this would have put me off for like a while before. And I feel like now that like my processing speed or my ability to like address things and face things as they come up has increased, it seems like I get like multiple things at once. Where it's like either it's a topic and like everything that contributes to this is like bing, 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 and it's all coming up, or it'll be like a situation. So either it's like one thing with many contributors, or it's one thing that contributes to a lot of other things. And it's all like happening all at the same time. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, can I tell you something? I was like, yes, you can, please. She was like, just be. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. But I think it was like her saying that triggered the realization of like the thing that's sitting with me right now. It's not necessarily for me to go do, it's just to realize that that blockage isn't there anymore. So if the path does swing in that direction, I don't go nope and then go do whatever for however long and delay and derail myself. I mean, especially since my word for this year is expedition. My word for last year was allow. I feel like I get drawn to these words for the year and they feel so gorgeous and they feel so beautiful. It does feel like it's going to be a challenge. But then the year starts and I'm like, oh, so this ain't going to be easy. like I'm not, it's like, yeah. I'm like, oof. because it's just like, and I guess like that's part of expedition is to be able to handle and account for multiple things at once. Because my word would have related to more like velocity or something that was more strictly about speed, but it felt like energetically when I was like filling into the word, it felt like when you have when you have an increase in speed, you sacrifice flexibility. Right. It's like if you're going 90 miles or 100 miles per hour down the highway, freeway, expressway, whatever, and you're going to exit, you have to drop your speed to exit. It's like how, like, if you're running full force, you can't necessarily make a sharp turn or you might like trip over your own legs unless you're a cheetah. But I saw a video. It's like what cheetahs will do. Like, it was a video on the internet. I could be misremembering, it could be not correct information. But it's like the cheetah will, like, move its tail, so it's like the cheetah breaks the momentum in that way, and then it can turn more agilely. It's almost like moving the rudder on a boat. I'm not a sailor either. Um, and it makes me think of the hawk versus the falcon. Like, the peregrine falcon is, like, the fastest animal because of its insane dive speeds. But it's like because it dives so quickly, like I think falcons dive like face first, like beak first. It can't necessarily like if something comes up, it's like when you're moving that fast, you can't stop, you can't move around it. You just gotta brace yourself for impact. But with the hawk, no, that was the falcon. Yeah, with the hawk, they dive like talons first, and they're a little slower, but they're a lot more like precise in their flight. And that was a whole thing 2021 maybe, when it was like the falcon and then the hawk. Yeah, because I think 2021 was when I had that Farmer's Almanac calendar. Because 2022, I had the pun intended calendar. Um, and when I was filling into the energy of it, like it felt like there was like this need for it wasn't like sharp turns, but it was like very fluid, but it needed to like be able to accommodate for that. It needed to be able to move and to adjust in real time without a huge sacrifice to velocity. Because it almost felt like a train, but it was like a train is too linear. If you try to trying to go like a when you try to take a turn too fast and the car like flips and rolls. So I was like, oh, like um expedition. Because the adventure explorative aspect of it felt like it accommodated for that need to sometimes be able to pivot and turn on a dime. But then after the year started, I'm like, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't anything like this year hasn't been, I don't want to say it hasn't been challenging in some ways. It feels like most of the challenge of this year is in like learning to live in a new way and also in like preparing for the things that are definitely coming because the box that I used to live in, like I'm already outside of that comfort zone. I'm already living and doing things that I didn't think I'd ever be able to do. I'm already like well past my initial anticipated expiration, honestly. 5 years overdue. Um, but I don't even remember what I was talking about. But there's still more. There's still more to do. And it's like that the more to do as it becomes closer, it kind of like honestly kind of it freaks me out a little bit because it's like I feel like the biggest part of expedition or the biggest energetically it feels like the biggest blockage or the biggest challenge to overcome, the biggest hurdle, the greatest thing to keep in mind is the allowance that I learned last year. My word for 2022 was allow. And that that was a challenge. And it's not that I necessarily have a need. I think like because I'm a Taurus moon and rising, and one of the shadows of Taurus is like possessiveness, and I guess possessiveness can kind of tend towards control, but maybe because like I am a Taurus, like I'm a first house Taurus moon and rising, I don't try to control other people more so than I try to control like myself and the situations and circumstances that I place myself in. Because I'm the type of person where it's like if I get on a roller coaster, I have to wait until the ride is over to get off. And so if I used to be more so the type of person, if I think that at any point along this ride, I'm going to want to get off, since I know I can't get off, I just won't get on in the first place. I'm not even going to put myself in the position or place myself in a situation that I won't be able to get out of. And then, I took it to an extreme because I'm a Pisces and that's what we do. Call it overindulgence. And I was like, well, then I'm just not going to do anything in life. And that was about as fun as you could probably imagine it to be. Which is like completely like I feel like now my Venus in Aries is like, hey, so it's been like 20 years. When are you gonna remember that I'm also here? My Venus is in Aries, like deep, deep, deep in my 12th house. My 12th house is huge. It starts in Pisces and it ends in Taurus. And my poor Venus is locked up in the heart of Alcatraz. Opposing my Jupiter. Oh my gosh. My retrograde Jupiter, by the way, because I love my astrology. Um, it looked like a card was flipped over in here. But there have been certain things in life that I haven't used as much because I was more like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to place myself in as safe of an environment as I can, which is almost like a very overprotective helicopter parent that puts their child in a bubble. And then it's like, well, when you pop the bubble, their immune system, their body, like where everybody else's body is like acclimatizing to the environment so they can breathe fresh air and not have their lungs freak out like, what is this? And their skin be like, oh. In some ways, I'm like a newborn baby. Um, but I'm not, but I am. But I'm not, but I am. Um, and more so than that, it's just like allow. That's why allow was such a challenge. Um, that's part of the reason. That was one, like, there were many reasons why. But I'm not like, I don't try to control other people. Like, that's not my brand of control. Um, I don't even, like I said, it's more so like if I feel like I'm not going to put myself in a situation that I can't get out of type of energy. Everything else, like, I'm also like a Pisces sun and Mercury. Apparently, I got a little mini stellium in Pisces composed of two planets and some of the minor bodies. But anyway, um, excuse me, what was I saying? I'm a Pisces, so I can also go with the flow. I can go with the flow unless the answer is no, in which case it's a very, very strong no. One thing that I've been very good at is once a boundary is established, sticking to that boundary. And then once that boundary is crossed, it's like, oh, so you telling me that you don't care? Okay, well, you know where the people who don't care go? I don't, because they're out of my life. And that was a whole thing that I had to like massage and be like, oh, like be easy, you know. I'd be like, no, you ain't acting right. I ain't got time. And so there were quite a few people that I was just like, no, no, not for me. Not for me. No, thank you. Way too much. Um, but I had my now best friend to help me realize that, and like the reason, like, as much as we have disagreed, and even when we still argue, maybe that's a theme for me. Like, no matter how like stubborn he gets and how stubborn I get, and then our interactions with each other, like from the very beginning, I can tell that he's the type of person that like genuinely cares about people. And he's the type of person that isn't like, it's not that like he doesn't have an ego or whatever, but it's like we know how to put our egos aside to like talk to each other because we care about each other. You know what I mean? And I could tell from the beginning that like if I told him how I feel about something, he would actually take that into consideration. But because that's the whatever we've established, like when I was there in London and I was like, you know what, I'm ready to go home. Honestly, at this point, we ain't even gotta be friends no more. But I was like, Patrick, like that's not right. Like he's not the same person. You're not the same person. Blah 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 blah. I've talked about it. But then he was like, well, like just tell me like what you're thinking, so we can work through this, so we can like do that thing that we do where we don't do it again. And like if we do like upset each other, like if one person upsets the other, like I said, we listen and we make effort to not do it again. Because in my mind, in my world, like that's what you do with the people that you care about. If someone's like, hey, this upsets me, like, and maybe that's like me treating people how I would want to be treated, or me listening to other people when they tell me how they want to be treated. And if it's an accommodation that I can make, then, I make it. If it's a little outrageous, then I might be like, hey, you're looking for something that I can't give you. We're not a match. Live your best life. Go find the one who can give you what you need and what you want. I'm not gonna try to self myself. I'm not gonna try to force myself into that box. It ain't gonna work between us. No hard feelings. It happens. Does it suck sometimes? Yeah, especially if we've known each other for a while. But when that time comes, the time comes. You know. Um, but he was like, "Yeah, like just tell me like what you're feeling. Tell me what's going on, so like we can address it, so we can work through it." And I was like, "Well, I didn't want to make a big deal about anything, but this is how I'm feeling. This is how you made me feel." And he's like, "Well, this is how I'm feeling, and this is how you make me feel." And I was like, "Oof." Because like even when we get like that, I think sometimes it can come off as kind of blamey. Probably from my side more. The Taurus in me, I promise, I have a fairly decent memory. But when I get upset, I don't keep running tabs. I don't have a file on my computer of like everything that anyone's ever done to like hurt me or harm me or upset me in any way. But when I get mad, like instant recollection of every single thing. You did this on this day at this time, and you said this other thing on this whatever, blah 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 blah. What do you have to say for yourself? And he'd be like, uh I was like, yeah, you there is no, yeah, that's why you're speechless, because there's no excuse. There's no reason. I'm a lot better than I used to be. Ask my mama. Whew. My mama thinks I'm like the meanest person alive. Not the meanest, maybe like the least patient with some things. Also like incredibly patient. For as patient and kind and understanding as I am, I can be the complete opposite. And my Pisces and is my sun Pisces sun is in my 11th house, and my 11th house is ruled by Aquarius. And if Aquarius is cold, I can be colder. Neptune is further than Uranus is. Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm playing, kind of. I'm a lot better than I used to be. Like I said, my best friend really helped me with that, though. So, anyway, anyway. So, yeah. And that's one thing that, like, ether void is still at the bottom of the deck. That's one thing that I've been, again, like, it's something that I could immediately tell was different about him. Because I feel like there are a lot of people, it's been my experience that there are some people who, whenever a conflict arises or whenever there's a like, hey, like you did this and I didn't appreciate it, like here's the reason why I don't appreciate it, and like I would love for you to not like keep doing this because that's not cool. And then they just like, well, you did this to me the other day, and it's like it becomes so like blamey and defensive, like communication breaks down, and then like there's no real change. Like Like I'm lazy. I feel like I should talk about myself better. I'm I'm motivationally challenged. That's not. I care about the things that I care about. And I'm the type of person where it's like I'd rather do something right the first time or the second time because I don't have the time to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. I don't have the patience for it. Like in certain cases and situations and scenarios, like it's fine, it's understandable, it's acceptable. And others it's not. And for me, like one thing I don't compromise on really is like how you make me feel. And like I've said it before, the biggest way or the easiest way to get me to cut you out of my life for forever is to disregard my feelings or not listen to me when I'm upset. Cause then I'm just like, oh, you don't care about me. Why would I keep you in my life if you don't care? Why would I like there are better things that I have to do that I'm not doing. So what you're not gonna do is waste my time. Only I can waste my time. And that's a conscious choice and decision that I make, and then I suffer the consequences, and I don't complain about it because I made the choice to not like. It was like I was talking to one of my buddies one day, and he was like, "Don't you hate like when you didn't do an assignment and there's that one person in class who like reminds the teacher that homework was due? Like, don't you hate that? Like when that happens?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, well, you're just saying that to be difficult or blah blah blah, whatever." I'm like, "No, like if I don't do the homework at home, like I'll come into class expecting to get that zero. It was due regardless. If the teacher forgot and nobody said anything, like that would be like a grace that I didn't expect. That I mean, am I going to do the homework now? Maybe. I'm not the best with doing homework, so maybe not. Um, Hootie, it's my journey, buddy. My best friend. I love all my best friends. Anyway, I'm like, no, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be upset. Because if it were the other way, if I did actually do my homework, you best believe it's getting collected. I'm not I'm not like when I don't do the work and I don't get paid, I don't like I made the conscious decision to not show up to work today, knowing that the consequence would be that I don't get paid for today. Like, in what world does it make sense for me to consciously choose to not go to work and expect a paycheck? Like that don't that's not how things work. Like, no. I don't get mad when someone's like, "Hey, you forgot to collect the homework." Who would I get mad at? Myself for not doing it? You know what I mean? And he always thought I was being difficult, and I'm just like, "No, like it doesn't make sense to me." Like I expected to get that 0 when I showed up to class and I didn't do my homework. I expected to get that 0 when I chose to Netflix, anime, video game, go to sleep, eat, whatever. When I made all of those other choices and decisions instead of the one that would have got me a not 0, and he just couldn't fathom it. There were a few things. It was something else where it was like, because like I had a boss one summer that I complained about sometimes because there were some things that she did that I didn't like. And then I made a comment about her or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, like, don't you just hate it or whatever?" And I was like, "She's just doing her job." And he was like, "You don't even like her. Like, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "Just because I don't agree with some of the things that she does doesn't mean that like she's literally doing her job. Like if she were amazing and my favorite person in the world, she would still be doing this because it's her job." You know what I mean? Like and there were things that I did like about her. I'm like, I can hold multiple viewpoints at the same time. Like I can love somebody and also be like understanding or aware and cognizant of like their faults. You know what I mean? I don't have to become blind to it to continue to like them. Whereas in the same way, like I don't have to be blind to everyone to someone's like really strong points and their strengths and like the good things about them if I don't like them or if I don't care for them, if like they're just not for me. right? I don't have to take this all or nothing. I don't have to throw all of the good qualities away because that's somebody that I don't like. And I don't have to throw all the bad qualities away because that's someone that I adore and I love. It's like, come on, like I'm a complex human being. It's like it's what we do. It's not even what we do. It's just like it's life. Nobody's perfect. Anyway, it was just like it. In some ways, it did. There were a few times where like it blew my mind a little bit, honestly. Where I'm like I can love apple pie and not feel like eating pie on Pie Day. Happy Pie Day, by the way. I'm gonna grab the third card from this deck and the 14th card from the other one, from the top. Third from the top of this, 14th from the bottom of the other one. 1, 2, 3. Animals. I see this animals card so often at like the bottom of the deck, and I never know what to say for it. It's been an hour. We're gonna timestamp an hour for cards. I'm always like, okay, animals, companionship. Like, what do I do with this? Animals are trying to like tell you something. So if you see an animal or like your animal guides or animal totem or whatever, like pay attention. Spirit's gonna communicate with you through. I'm like, okay, but like if it means something to the people that it means something to, but for me, I guess depending on the animal, I'm like, it's an animal. I'm like animals are great. I love animals, but like plants are great too. And like other things about life are great, you know. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm actually going to grab a Lafruma as the decimal point because there's a specific card that, you know what? So the blood card came out. And like I feel like, depending on the situation, animal blood isn't necessarily like a cute look. You know what I mean? And so honestly, I'm like, if Kanafa comes out of the Lafruma, then girl, are we talking about animal sacrifice? Whoa. But maybe it's like with blood, like, animals bleed blood and we bleed blood and like we're all connected. The biome card was at the bottom of the deck, like connectedness, like the biome of Earth. You know what I mean? Am I still going to eat chicken? Probably. Am I going to eat fish? No. I'd say that because like I had a pet fish one time. Like after I had a pet fish, I stopped being able to eat fish. I don't like being reminded that my food was alive. So like I feel like I'm like a few bad experiences away from just like being a vegetarian. But also at the same time, like honestly, I feel a little bit more attached to plants than I do animals. And I feel like eating plants isn't like life is life. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just like in my mind, the like I don't eat animals, but I eat live food. It's like, well, it's still alive. Yeah, I don't know. Like if a tiger were to bust through this window and start eating me, like I guess I'm on the menu today. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I say that who knows? I might actually be vegetarian someday. Like I said, I'm look. Remember how I was like, it would be so wild if Kanafa came out because when Kanafa was being raped, like Felissa is the first blood of the feminine, which is the menstrual cycle when she first menstruate. I can't even remember the word right now. When she gets her first period, menstrual, menstruates, menstruate. Anyway, when that happens, Felissa, For the masculine, it's like, when you become a certain age, you go out and you kill your first whatever. And you come back with the proof that you've killed it. Like the feminine sheds her own blood, the masculine sheds someone else's. But it also came with an energy of like animal sacrifice because of that's what it that's what it came out as, or it came out with that energy. And that's why I was like, with animal and blood, I was like, it would be wild if Kanafa came out. Two cards flipped over in the deck when I was shuffling it. I literally already found it. It's back here somewhere. There it is. Kanafa. Animal sacrifice. But behind it is Bifrost, which is master number 77. Kanafa is number 71. 7771. This Bifrost feels like it's almost like there's another way. Bottom of the deck is East, which is shared between both of these. It's the backbone of both of these. But anyway, East is the backbone of many rooms. Not that that makes it any less significant. It's almost like it was a misunderstanding. I'm not going to speak on anyone else's like history and like whatever they believed at the time they believed it and whatever they did, you know what I mean? Because that ain't my place. It feels like for me to look at this as like animal blood, like if I were to receive this and be like, oh, the divine wants me to sacrifice an animal, like, not me personally. You, if that's what you do, girl, not my realm. But it feels like Kanafa. It's the reason why I say low hanging fruit sometimes. I thought about that today for some reason. Like animal sacrifice was low hanging fruit. And it's like low hanging fruit is like it's easy to see this and to make this assumption or to come to this conclusion. Like it's easy. It's almost like 1 + 1 equals, and you're like two because you know that 1 + 1 equals two, but actually the answer is 11 or 25. You know what I mean? Low hanging fruit is two because, all right, see you later, Holly. I don't even know how long I'll be on live today. I ain't even got to what I wanted to get to. But anyway, this is just the video. But Bifrost is like, it's not that. It's like we have all the pieces. But like these things, they don't go here. The kins, the divine sparks, they don't go here. Like one goes up here and one goes down here, and they both like are joined in this way. It's almost like this is the way that I'm supposed to interpret animal blood. This is the hanging fruit. And I say that also because of the journeying, connecting different realms and different worlds nature of the Bifrost, because of that bridging aspect as well. What else could this be though? I don't know. Like I said, when I see animal, I don't animal and sanguis. I feel like I don't even want to ask a deck. Like, do I have another deck that can tell me what? It's not animal sacrifice. That's all I know. I mean, I was talking about eating animals. Some animals, not all animals. I'm gonna ask Bixby yes or no if I just leave this for what it is, or if you know what, I'm not gonna ask Bixby. That's me taking the easy way out. My biggest fan called herself trying to call me out the other day. She was like, "Didn't you just say whatever? Like, and now you're asking Bixby what you should do, or Siri? Like, shouldn't you make your own choice?" I'm like, "I'm a complex human, mom. Hypocrisy is part of the territory." Anyway, um, I don't know why that's so funny to me. There's a connectedness, companionship, and blood. I was gonna mention this. I completely forgot. It's like this is a relationship. There's something about this animals card that there's something about animals. There are a lot of people who love animals more than people. It almost makes me think of, I think it was Community. It's fine. It's fine. We don't have to go there. Just like put the lid and the top back on that can of worms, and we're gonna set it back off screen. Um, it's like there are some people who love animals more than they do people. Some people who will do more for animals and go further for animals and champion animals more than they will other people. And so with animals and blood, it's almost like a chosen family energy. And it's just animals because it's like it's not people. And so it's easy for me to see it that way, where we draw closer to that which is not related. And sometimes when we draw closer to that which is not related, we also distance ourselves from those that are. So it's like this together, it's reading like ancestry. And this Kanafa in this specific case scenario situation, this is my personal belief, but I also understand that different people do different things, and so everybody's ancestry ain't necessarily the same. Like, I'm not necessarily like super into ancestral ancestors, whatever, but what I know of my ancestors is like my ancestry is lit. They mad proud, and we's working together. Not necessarily like there is no intentional thing that I do besides just feel like, my ancestors are proud of me, they got my back. And also like there are things that I'm gonna do for my ancestors through the space of like the family that I have living right now. I don't have the same need to cut all blood ties and do whatever. But that's what this is feeling like. This is feeling like it's reading as some like toxic ancestry that someone needs to remove themselves from. It's like you're a spiritual being. You are not of this planet. You are not of this world. Your family isn't even really your family. Your family is, oh, girl. Like, because of all the animals, it's making me think of like birds are avians and like dolphins are Syrian and cats are Lyran and this is that and that is this. So it's like it's this drawing closer. It's like it's a closer tie and connection to the extraterrestrial with that is paired with a disregard for the terrestrial. And it makes me think of that like when someone is so upper chakras, which is literally Kanafa, it's like all upper chakras. When someone is like so upper chakras that the lower chakras sort of suffer. And so it's like I'm not even necessarily going to choose my words carefully. If it don't resonate, if it don't fit, like don't take it. Hopefully if it don't resonate for you, you don't even like watch this part of the video or whatever. If it's something that you ask yourself like, do I resonate with this really, or is this what everybody else on YouTube is saying and doing? That's you. For the people that it resonates for, again, like there are people who that is 100% true. I do believe, fully honestly. Am I one of those people? No. But it's like for those who are like so upper chakra, it makes me think of like people who are like, I got this in my crown or my third eye and my heart and my throat, whatever. And like, if you're living from the sacral or the root or the solar plexus, like you're just some little you're plugged into the matrix and blah blah blah. And it's like they do so much work for a collective that they don't even care about, right? It's like, and I feel like it goes back to that something can go, when something can be received from the crown and penetrate through the heart to reach the lower three chakras of the seven majors and what is whatever, because I know that there's more than just seven and blah, 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 blah. But it's like it doesn't do anything for anyone else. And in my mind, it's just more like almost oxymoronic, where it's like, I'm doing this for the collective and I'm doing that for the collective and I'm trying to elevate humanity as a whole. But at the same time, it's like there are like there's like, it reads as very like tribal, because it's like that's what you're saying, but what you actually mean is like, for the people who are on like this spiritual journey, or for the people who believe the way that I believe and who do what I think we should be doing, like, that's who I'm doing this for. Like upper three chakras only. Where it's like, well, shouldn't it be everybody? You know what I mean? I mean, not shouldn't it, but as if like there is a should or shouldn't. It just feel like when those lower three aren't also a part of the picture, there's nothing grounding it. It's like, if I'm thirsty and I want to drink water through a straw, but there's a blockage in half of the straw, it doesn't matter like how much I suck on the straw, it's not gonna like ever touch my tongue, because there's something that prevents the water from flowing. It's a broken circuit, it's incomplete. And that came out with the share wisdom card, I think it was, and the threads of fate oracle cards, where it was like, it's this feeling of like, when it comes to earth, if the earth is a tree, when we're so like upper three chakras are up whatever, it's like all of those nutrients penetrate like an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches into the ground. And we're trying to sustain a plant that has roots that go well below that. But like, and it's like the majority of the roots are there. Is the tree like, can the tree do some stuff off of the like 3 inches of like water and nitrogen and everything that the plant needs? Like, yeah. But is it going to be like, and it's almost like we wouldn't even necessarily recognize it as like as sickly as it is, because it's almost like we haven't necessarily seen the tree in its full glory, when like all of the roots have access, and because all of the roots have access, they can like really pump it into that tree, and then we really see it above ground. But it's like, we're like, oh well, it's not dead, so we're doing a great job. And it's like, yeah, it's not dead, but it could also be a lot better. It's like when I was talking to my biggest fan, and I was like, what'd you think of like the fish? Because like I said, I don't eat fish, it makes me sad. I'm like the opposite of a pescatarian. um I'm fraught with just like, we call it, what did I call it? Paradox. That's the word I like. But hypocrisy, if it makes you feel better about me. Um and I don't know if I like Saturn and Pisces, honestly, not gonna lie. Like, I was like this before Saturn entered Pisces. It's not Saturn. Anyway, um I don't even remember what I was about to say. There was some comment I was gonna make. Um but yeah, it's like, we think that it's thriving because it's not dying. But it's like, if it were fully connected, if all of the roots had access to this, imagine what it would look like. And it's like, we're trying to come into, in some ways, we're trying to come into this like age of Aquarius, or this like mega abundant whatever, but we're not even tending to everything. It's like you watering one potted plant that you keep inside your house on the windowsill in the sunniest corner of the room. Meanwhile, your whole garden is in the backyard dead, because you don't do anything with that, but you're expecting this to like it's that degree of separation, it's that level of separation. It has diminishing returns when there is that much, and I feel like it's kind of sort of playing on that a little bit. Now, is that also low hiking fruit for me? Yeah, because like I said, and are there things that it's just like it's just like what? Maybe there are more effective approaches. Again, and I also know and believe that it is for some people to do like specific things. It's for me to do the stuff that's for me to do. And it like those things align with me and my soul and my truth and what I believe as true and my collective of truth. My collective of truth being like the things that I will know as true later that I don't necessarily know as true now. Maybe because I'm completely unaware, or maybe because my own beliefs will personally shift. I don't know. But it's just like it doesn't. And I guess that's interesting because I was it came across the screen earlier today. There was some news reporter in Ukraine, I think, talking on camera, and the news reporter was walking, and there were like two people who were standing reading, and the camera is pointed where it's showing their faces, and one of the people like they look up, see the camera, and then they turn their back to the camera. And I'm like, it's so wild, like from like a point of view where it's like it's important that the world is informed and that like we know what's happening. Maybe, but like I can't even imagine like being in a type of situation and then have like somebody's camera in my face talking about broadcasting everything. You know what I mean? It was just like it's so wild that like I was like, I can't even imagine. And then like all of the, feed the hungry, whatever commercials that we see, it's I don't, and then it's like, we feel good about it's like, we feel good that we donate $5 a month to feed a starving child in Africa or whatever. And that like is our good deed that clears us of whatever. But then it's like there have been so many because I feel like I don't know if it's gonna be a Saturn and Pisces thing where it's like the truth of certain people is like revealed in a way where it's like there have been so many people who will like take certain stances like humanitarian. It might be a part of what we need to clear up before the age of Aquarius gets in the full gear. Who knows? Or it's like there'll be people who like take a certain stance or who have certain charities and organizations that are dedicated to like solving some humanitarian problem or crisis or whatever. But then you find out that they pocket all the money. Or there is someone who runs on a certain platform because they know that it's an issue that a certain sect of people like care about that they don't really care about, but they know that if that's how they market themselves or brand themselves, they have a better chance at getting that seat. And then they get into office and it's like there's nothing that holds anybody to anything. You can say whatever you want to get a vote, but there's nothing that holds you accountable for actually delivering. You know what I mean? And so people just come in, they feign a certain caring, nurturing, whatever. But once they get the money, once they get the seat, once they get what they want, it's like, now I can start doing what I want to do. And it's like, I don't know. Where am I even going at this point? I saw that on the TV. I don't, it's just, oh, because of I remember how I got on that thread because it felt a little like oh, like I'm so high vibe and this and that, and I'm doing all this for the collective, but like 99.99999% of the collective you don't even like care about. And your work is to like distance yourself from those people. And like maybe that was the Kanafa too. It's like, sometimes we get so focused on the spiritual, the whatever, that we completely neglect everything that's right here. The Bifrost can do both, above and below. But the Kanafa is so above focus that, and that's something like it made me think of that Knight of Pentacles. It was a thought I had earlier today. The Knight of Pentacles that came out in the Tarot of the Abyss with that Hierophant, with the Hierophant that had a different energy where it's like it's both above and below. Like that Knight of Pentacles was boots on the ground. It was like, oh, I lost the thought, but it's like, again, it's not so heavenly focused that it's no earthly good. That was the Knight of Pentacles. It was like there's something in the environment, something tangible, something in real life that we can use to get where we're going. It's not like where our eyes are trained on the sky, waiting for this thing to appear or drop in to fix and solve and resolve everything. But it's like there's the seed, there's the hoe, the shovel, the watering pail, the sun will rise. You ain't got to worry about that. Like, get to digging, plant the seed, water it every now and then. And it's just like it's a level of involvement, again, from head to toe, from crown to root. It's a level of presence that is grounded both above and below and very, very solid in between, that gives things like the celerity of the inner, like the quickness, the clarity. I like celerity. No, celerity is the word. I don't even know what I like anymore. But it's like in my brain, etymologically, etymologically, is that the word? I think it's like based in Latin, and in Latin they had hard C's instead of soft C's. So it's like clarity rather than celerity anyway. Like that was the magnitude of the magic and the speed, the momentum. Because there are, again, it's like there are things that it does and sees and notices in the real world. Anyway. And it's so easy to miss when we are so spiritually minded and focused sometimes. It can be very easy for the warmest people to grow so cold. And if that's not human history repeating itself, but it's in a new way, it's like different. It's like, okay, well, whatever. But there are some things that are for some people to do. So it's almost like, if that's the truth that gets you where you're going, that helps you fulfill your role and your assignment or your mission or whatever you're supposed to do in this life. Even beyond that, like if that is your truth, or if that is the truth, because I'm just a dude like everybody else, girl. Um, what do I know? Really? Besides the things that I know for me. But it's one of those things, like even outside my truth, I find it hard to reconcile those two things at the same time. Where it's like, again, it almost reads as like I'm tending to this plant that I have intentionally isolated from the environment with the intention of helping the environment. And it's not like always like that, obviously. And there are a lot of people who, make like when they talk about being heart-centered and heart-focused, it's not that it's only the heart. It's not that like they fall into the camp of like upper three chakras, including the heart, so upper four, I guess, and above. If you're in the bottom three chakras, it's like no. It's almost like it's like we ask for or expect a certain grace from the divine that we don't even give to each other. And the divine is more divine than we, for sure, right? So it's like, it's God's job to unconditionally love you. I don't have to. My love without conditions is giving you a namaste as I manifest a way out of here. It's it's fine. I can only handle so much. I don't. It's just like what's true for me is true for me, and that's all I gotta say. It's just like it seems that sometimes we can be so quick to like co-opt certain things. Where it's just like, but not always, because again, like some things hold resonance for certain people. But I guess if you find yourself in a position where you have exhausted your manifestation tips and tricks or whatever in life, and it seems like it's not getting you any further, then maybe that's taken you as far as it can take you. Maybe it's also in divine timing. Maybe there's something that's more resonant. Maybe there's something that's waiting to be birthed through you. And it's not for you to necessarily become anyone else's guru. Excuse me, but there may be people who resonate with your truth, who are, it's almost like, I talked about that a while ago. Like there are like preferred modalities. I think I use like a elemental like makeup of the soul. Where it's like there are water people who might be like more like Reiki and energy healing or whatever. And then there are like sound people who work more in sound, and there's people who like are more like connect to nature or like crystals and stuff like that. There are some people who might be like more mental cerebral, and so it's not necessarily, well, I feel it is like it feels like it'd be more like Buddhist, I think. I don't know much about Buddhism, but I think it's Buddhism that it is more informed. And I put informed in quotation marks because I don't want to say that other people aren't informed. You know what I mean? But it's more like centered in the experience, I guess, and transcending that experience. There are different flavors for everybody. And maybe crystals work for you, but you've only found and been introduced to like Reiki people. And so, like, you do your Reiki thing and it works until it doesn't. And it's like what at some point something within you and the divine and the universe outside of you will push you towards the crystals, like follow that. Or you might do something with crystals that like either someone else isn't doing, or that you may be doing something with crystals that people who you will be their lighthouse, I guess, for, like, they find you doing it, and it isn't necessarily that like you're doing something groundbreaking or new. But to somebody else, you might be. And you may be their ticket to like getting into or finding their whatever. Again, like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people who's like, I know exactly why I incarnated here and what I'm going to do with my life. And I don't say this in this tone and in this way to like disregard or disrespect anyone else. I'm not one of those people who have it all figured out. You know what I mean? I flow and I follow what feels right. And I try to be real honest with myself. Um, and I'm getting better at that. With oh, look at that energetic spring. Love that. I guess at this point spring is coming, but with the winter that felt like spring, it was a winter that energetically felt like spring, but that externally looked like winter. Or from the outside looked like winter. I already did the whole reading on that though. Anyway. So the void that was at the bottom of the deck I made the comment on the last video because it ended with dark matter, and I talked about in the last live. I was like, I've been thinking about like what is ether, and it feels like it's this like almost prima materia type of energy, where it's like it can become the water or the fire or the mountain, the river, the dog, the bird, the cat, the person. And I was like, I feel like it's ether. But then after, and I left a comment on the video where I was like, I wonder if it was actually more like dark matter, because the dark matter came out and it was like dark matter is simply matter that hasn't yet been assigned a purpose, role, or function in that phase of reality. So it floats in the background until it's like, okay, you're gonna be the wood that then becomes a desk, or you're gonna be an acorn or whatever, you know. And then the void was at the bottom of the deck, and it was connected to ether, and I was like, oh, ether, the void, dark matter. Ooh, that was it. That's the comment I was gonna make. So alchemy. At this point, I feel like I've rambled so much. I don't regret it, but it's also been like an hour and a half. So, oh, it's fine. I was gonna say something about that maybe potentially being one of the pitfalls of the age of Aquarius. It's that Kanafa and Bifrost. It's like, we're all like love and light, peace and harmony, this greater collective. And that's what we focus on in the age of Aquarius, because that seems like a very Aquarian thing. But if that comes at the cost of us neglecting the planet that we live on and the people that we come in contact with, then it's almost like it will never be what it has the potential to be. Like the age of Pisces was so beautiful in all of the religions and belief systems that spoke so much of love for others and treating others with kindness. But what did humanity do with that under the name of a loving whatever? Like, we use religion in some pretty gnarly ways. And was that the fault of the age of Pisces, or was that just like people? You know what I mean? And it's like we can do the same with the age of Aquarius, like if we're not careful. A card, these two, a card fell out. Those two I was able to catch in my knuckles. I'll like set them to the side just to note it. Rex Marinus, the drowned king. Is this Neptune? This is number 69. I'm mature enough to know that this is actually 49. It's XL. XL is 40, number 49, one before 50. Um, Rex Marinus. It says the drowned king, but I think Rex Marinus can also be like the king of the sea, because I think Mare is sea. It might be ocean. It's either the sea or the ocean. It's the king of the ocean. Neptune, Poseidon. But it says the drowned king. What it's looking like, it's like there's all this gold that's sort of like sinking to the bottom. And it feels like there are certain things that have like almost sedimented, and it lies at the bottom of, it's almost like the bottom of the well, at the bottom of the barrel. Is it a certain like, it's almost like how sometimes we have to lose everything to find an appreciation for anything type of energy. I don't want to say people being people, but the blue temple number 44, number 54. I can't Roman numerals today. It's fine. Number 54, the blue temple. We have the blue. This is a card that hit the laptop. The other two cards that are caught in my knuckles, I'm going to flip over in a second. We have the blue temple with the drowned king at the bottom of the deck. It's reading a little Atlantis. It's feeling a little Atlantic. I mean, I guess like for me, sometimes there are things where it's like, for me personally, and again, I feel like I got to preface this by saying that there are certain things that I resonate to, certain things I don't resonate to. There are certain things that I have like partial resonance with, where it's like it resonates, but the truth for me or the way that I feel and view my perspective is different. And it's almost like it makes me think of like how Atlantis is like venerated, it seems like in a lot of ways. Where it's like, there's this Atlantean this or this Atlantean that or like Lemurian whatever. And we put it on like this pedestal of like something to attain and achieve, but it's like didn't it fall for a reason? It's all man, it's almost like idolizing a failed business person. It's like they had all these businesses and I'm like, oh my gosh, but it's like, yeah, they had a bunch of businesses, but we know that they weren't successful. We know the state of everything now. Why would we emulate that? And it's not that there isn't it's not that there aren't certain wisdoms and certain teachings that we could take on, but it's like it's almost like to aim for a complete emulation or to use everything as is and to treat it as gospel and to not expect to meet a similar end is a little like me not doing homework expecting to get a 100%. And like it's almost like that's the drowned king with this blue tip. Like it didn't it like consider how it ended type of thing. You know what I mean? Chiron is in reverse. It's a 9 in reverse, but it's an 11 upright under that. Under the drowned king is Chiron. Mars is upright under Chiron. Mars, Cancer, Chiron. Is Chiron still in Aries? I don't know. If Chiron is still in Aries, that means that it's going to square Mars at some point after sextiling it. If Chiron is in Taurus and it moved, then it's going to sextile it. Anyway, it makes me think of that. It's like these things that we sort of hold up and pop up, but that had like, we have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of knowing how it ended. And again, it's not to say that there aren't any things that are helpful or relevant or true, but it's like also at the same time, we might not want to go on a one for one sort of path unless we also want to be at the bottom of a sea somewhere drowned. The cards that were left in my hand, number 23, Eris, Copper, and number 4, Veneris, Venus. Is Copper associated with Venus? I gotta read the book. I don't know nothing about no alchemy. And just because Kim Kranz wrote it in her book don't necessarily mean it's, whatever. That's why, like, while I do love like certain books, especially like for things that I wouldn't, it's like some things resonate at some points, some and then at other points they don't. And if it ain't saying something that feel like it's right, then I'm gonna find the thing that feels more right. Copper. I guess I'll just read it. Excuse me. In ancient times, on an island called Cyprus, copper was mined extensively to make vessels and tools. This island is the same fertile ground of Aphrodite, the goddess associated with the planet Venus and the forces of love, pleasure, and fertility. Such is the magic of copper. This golden hued metal elicits delight and mystique, even a sense of awe. The copper card marks the arrival of Eros into the laboratory. It is likely the alchemist has been hard at work for the long, wait, what? For too long, prioritizing scholarly pursuits over sensual pleasure. That's reading the little top three chakras: scholarly pursuits, the crown, the third eye, and the throat. Sensory pleasures, the sacral, the root, the solar plexus, anyway. It's likely the alchemist has been hard at work for too long, prioritizing scholarly pursuits over sensual pleasure. Get ready for a shift of priorities, for an awakening of the heart and the life generating centers of the body. In the true alchemical experiment, nothing is excluded or separate from the work. Bring sensuality into the fold and embrace it with reverence and curiosity. Aphrodite smiles upon you, and Venus Aphrodite is literally right here. Is that a confirmation for everything that I said? Is that spiritual bias? I mean, the cards did come out, you know what I mean? And I feel like, see, this makes, again, it makes me think of that, like, going back to Atlantis and this drowned king with this blue temple. Like, this is us going on all of these, like, deep sea, girl, what is happening right now? This is us going on all of these, like, deep sea explorations to find this missing wisdom with all of these pearls. And Venus is literally right here. She's like, like, I was birthed from the sea foam. Like, I came from there, right? Not only did I come from there, I'm like here now. You're looking all the way down here trying to get your body acclimated to high pressures so you can survive in the deep ocean as you try to find this blue temple of Atlantis and explore it. And girl, like, all the information is like literally right here. Like, you can do it. Maybe there are things down there that are worth exploring. There are things down there that need to be discovered to da 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 whatever. But if you're just looking for the wisdom, the knowledge, the information, you don't have to go to those links to find it. Also, that, like, welcome sensuality into the fold, incorporate these things, don't exclude or separate for the completeness of the work. And it's almost like circumstance, time, life will sort of like sort out whatever. So we don't necessarily have to focus on that. You know what I mean? As long as we continue to do the things that the divine have for us to do, that the divine has for us to do, and as long as we incorporate all of the knowledge and wisdom that we've learned along our journeys, and as long as we remain open to all that is still yet to come, so we can still learn, we'll be fine. We don't necessarily have to devote and dedicate effort towards certain things or like removing ourselves from certain situations, because as we change, heal, like energetically, spiritually, according to a lot of like accepted beliefs, the things that come into our experience changes. And even on a human level, there are certain things that you're going to recognize that you're not going to tolerate anymore. So you're not going to spend the same amount of time in that situation. You're not going to get lost, the way type of energy. So you don't have to dedicate energy towards like not doing this, because if you focus on what you want and that's not included, it won't be included type of energy. But again, it's a balance. We're humans. We exist in a collective, in a consensus reality, as some folks call it, on this place that we all share. And it's like one person's rights don't necessarily supersede another's, right? It's like when you're young and your parents let you watch TV, like you don't have any more ownership over the TV than your brother or your sister or whoever does. if your parents give you like all the same access, right? Depending on how they like split up TV time or whatever. Like, of course, there are always like um, factors that affect and influence like what can be done, what can't be done. Like there are agreements and compromises and whatever. All right, an element for this. We'll do the element at the bottom of the deck will be for the drowned temple or for the drowned king. And by proxy, the blue temple. The card that comes out will be for Copper and Venus. Oh, look. I can't save it. The bottom of the deck is the whole deck is in reverse. I was like, the bottom of the deck is south in reverse. The reverse of south is north. Should I take it in reverse? I mean, the whole deck is in reverse. So the bottom of the deck is south, which is what you kind of is directionally. It's almost like that's where we gotta go to get to the Drone Temple. South is adventure. What's behind south? It's number 2, 10, bushfires, which is fury. Bushfires came out before. South and fury, it's like Atlantis fell for a reason, girl. Like it's almost like they're the for the things that don't work, or for sometimes for the things that don't work and the things that aren't around still, like there's a reason for that. Sometimes that reason for that is it fell at the ambition, like to someone else's ambition. Someone else was like, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna force myself to blah 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 whatever, and then it's like it's all gone. You ate all of the bread and you harvested all of the wheat and you never planted a single seed, so now there's nothing left to regrow the wheat. We just don't have bread anymore. But don't worry, we have like almond flour and like walnut flour and oat flour and like all of these other flours. So like if it ain't no more wheat, like we have substitutions, but you're not gonna get whole wheat because you were ravenous. You devoured all of it and didn't make any preparation for propagation. So it's like it's almost like this tower energy that we kind of sort of welcome unto ourselves. Maybe with adventure, it's like, we're so focused on it's funny that sometimes there's like this South Node Sagittarius energy that's still kind of here a little bit because that's what we already learned previously. We're out of the Gemini Sagittarius node. So anyway, we'll be moving into, I was going to mention that we'll be moving into North Node Aries, South Node Libra soon. And Mars is here at the bottom of the deck behind Chiron and this drowned king. And Venus is on the table with Copper. Venus ruling Libra, where the South Node will be Aries leading, or Aries ruling Mars, where the North Node will be. So it's almost this like, maybe that's a lot of this North Node, South Node stuff, where it's like, don't be so focused on the North Node that you forget the lessons of the South Node, because it feels like North Node, Aries, South Node. And it's interesting because it feels like there's almost this weird, like, spiritual reverse psychology effect sometimes, where it's like we can be so knowledgeable that we get careless. Going back to that neuroplasticity, like for the most part, we do a thing, but once we really have it down, we stop paying attention as much. So it can be easier to make a mistake because we're not as like focused and intent as we were when we were learning, but the frequency of mistakes is like less. You know what I mean? because we know what we're doing now. We're not going to make, like, we've already made all the mistakes. Now we know better. But because we know better, it becomes easy to like overlook something. Um, but it's just that, like, because North Node Aries can be such a like everyone doing what is in their best interest, everyone sort of doing their own thing. And the South Node in Libra, if we have that mentality of like, do the North Node, don't do the South Node, it's like, screw what everybody else is like saying or doing, like, screw your neighbors and your aunties and your grandma and your mama and your brother and your sister, do what's going to be right for you. And it's like when everyone's acting in self-interest and there's no consideration for how we influence thing, like how we impact more so than influence, how we, I guess, impact and influence, how we impact one another. That's just like a greedy four for all. A greedy four for all. It's a greedy free for all, where everyone's like running in the store and just grabbing everything way more than they could ever use or way more than they need. And it's like we've kind of already seen how that plays out, you know? So it's like it's not to be so hyper focused on like pleasing everybody else that we don't do what is aligned for us, because maybe overall we've been a little bit more people pleasy. And it's like it's time for the people pleasing to stop, but also like remain considerate of the environment and other people in it. Integrate the whole, like introduce it into the mix. But just because we're introducing one thing doesn't necessarily mean we have to remove another. The card that came out is electricity, wildness. Girl, look at her. No, no. Well, ooh, this feel like a Venus that's like, I'm just glad to finally be free. But beyond that, it's the closed circuit. That's what this is. The circuit being closed allows for this wildness to sort of like occur, because the circuit was open when the blockage was in the straw. If a circuit is open, a circuit has to be closed for electricity to flow through it for it to power something. So it's almost like if we intentionally like remove or turn off certain energetic centers in this overall body, like it may function in certain ways, but the circuit overall won't be complete. So we'll be suffering like energetic losses. And in this situation scenario, they would kind of be self inflicted because of taking to an extreme, maybe that like out of the root, out of the sacral, out of the solar, it's either heart or above. And again, it's like it's so easy for the world to suffer when our roots don't run deep enough to nourish it. Again, it's like, you're taking care of a house plant thinking that you're doing something for the garden in the back. But again, like if it don't resonate, don't take it, right? If the plant that you're growing, like if the reason why your house plant is separate from the garden in the back is because it put something into the soil that would kill the other plants, or because like it's new. So if you were to like put it out there with the other plants, it wouldn't get enough sunlight because everything else is like taller and like casting so much shade that it can't get what it needs. Like if there's good reason to separate it, like separate them, but also don't forget about the garden in the back, because you're probably going to want more than just a handful of tomatoes. If you got the beans, the peas, the carrots, the potatoes, and everything else in the back, you know what I mean? I'm gonna actually reshuffle because the animal card was still out. So one more time, bottom of the deck will be for the Drowned King in the Blue Temple. The card that comes out will be for Venus and Copper. This is the card I thought it was. I thought it was the card of magic. The card that already came out, remember? Number 43, magic alchemy. The alchemy is Venus literally offering copper. I didn't even catch that. I just remember reading copper and I was like, isn't copper associated with Venus? Also, like the glyph for Venus is like literally right there. But also, Venus is like literally holding copper. It's this magic, it's this alchemy. And I didn't realize it until I watched that video back. But whatever this is in alchemy, that's the same thing that the magician was holding between his hands in the tree. And again, the magician was connected to the above and below. It wasn't just like some disembodied head that was like floating around, you know what I mean? Or it wasn't just like the canopy and the trunk with no connection. Bottom of the deck is West completion. So before it was South adventure, now it's West completion. That's the direction that the sun goes to set, which means there's an incoming darkness, right? Or we're looking towards the setting sun. But this alchemy, this magic came out with movement and the moon, which was darkness. It brings light to a space that didn't have it. The closed loop and that electricity of the wildness, now the lights come on. It's a light that hadn't been there before. There's something that Venus is actually presenting. And again, like Venus is born from the sea, born from the ocean, born of sea foam and that clam, literally as the pearl. It's almost like Venus is the embodiment of all of that knowledge and wisdom that we go looking for at the bottom of the sea in this blue temple. It's almost like seeking something from places and not realizing like what we already have. Going back to the cooking metaphor or analogy from the last video, it's like we know that we want to bake a cake and we know that we're going to need eggs, and so we go and get eggs, but we don't check the pantry or the refrigerator before we leave. We don't realize that we have eggs at home. We got food at home. We got eggs at home. Like we don't need to go to the store and buy eggs. We have more than enough. But we don't realize it. We don't see it. So we go out looking for it and we're like, well, the grocery store didn't have any eggs today because eggs are expensive AF right now. It's like, well, the grocery store didn't have any eggs, so we're not going to make a cake. We're not going to be able to bake anything because we don't have the eggs. But it's like if you would check where you if you would check where you keep the eggs, if you would check, like you would see that you have enough eggs to bake the cake. Again, it feels like it kind of goes back to that Knight of Pentacles, where it's like if we reject that, we don't see it. There's something in the lower three. Our root is literally our connection. So, and I think sometimes it's like, I guess I want to say rightfully so in a lot of ways, but sometimes we look at the world around us and the people in it and the state of it, and it can be really easy to be disheartened. Um, and I had that thought the other day. I was watching, it was like a Mr. Beast something popped up somewhere. Maybe it was like, oh, Mr. Beast paid for like 100 blind people to have a surgery or whatever. And someone's like, well, like, why is it that when people do something nice, they like put it on social media for like clout or whatever? Like, if you're going to do something nice, you can do something nice in private, which has a lot of validity to it. But at the same time, will also hold this like, why is everything that we see on social media, or why is everything everything that we see on the news bad. Like, where's the good news? Right? So it's like we don't want to watch good things on it's like we want to watch good things on the news, but then we're like, well, why is this being publicized? Why are we talking about it? Why can't people just be good people in secret? And it's like, girl, do you want good news or not? Like, do you want some positivity on your social media feed or not? Would it play with the narrative of everything on social media is toxic and it's all garbage? Sure. Could it play into, oh, they're just doing this for their ego? They don't really care? Maybe. But it's like, again, sometimes we ask for things that we don't even allow ourselves to receive. That was a few lives ago. But I just had that thought of like, are there some people who do it just for the clicks or the views or whatever? Sure. But for the person who like receives a life-changing amount of money or procedure, or for the person that gets like food in their belly that day that doesn't usually have it, at least they have a meal, which is a little hypocritical if we go back to the like, but it's not really. It's not, because at least in the publicizing, publishing, I don't even know English anymore. Um, at least in like the posting of the thing to social media, like the person's belly is full, they have a car, they got like a haircut, or they were able to take care of themselves. At least something good came out of it for them. You know what I mean? Rather than just like, oh, like look at this person in the state of squalor that they're in. Like, you should be so grateful for everything that you have. You should be glad that you're not this person, because you could be here. And it's like, okay, sure, but at least Mr. Beast is giving me like a sandwich, something I can eat, rather than just like putting me on full blast for somebody to like feel bad or think that I need them to come in and do whatever. And y'all know that sometimes I think it's another thing I've noticed is that like I think sometimes because of our distance from consequence, our sense of like cause and effect is a little skewed. And how like that's not even a sense of cause and effect. It's in some ways our inability to get to the root of a problem, or to see it in its truth outside of the truth that we want to see or believe, outside of the truth that affirms the narrative that we're currently running. And girl, I'm probably the same, honestly. Confirmation bias is real. And like I'm only human too. But it's like it's sometimes it goes back to that energy of like the people who like start charities to get money because they know that there are people who legitimately care and who are like looking to actually do good in the world, but because of their own like motives and intentions, all they do is like they pocket the money, and it doesn't actually go to where you think it's going to. It's almost like it's an energy of like almost a manufactured problem and a given solution. And I know that there's a whole slew of people who will be like, yeah, a manufactured problem and a given solution. I know what that sounds like. But it's just like in general, it's just overall how easy it is for stuff like that to happen. But there is also like a wave of accountability that's coming in a lot of ways. But then it's like we want people to be better, but then we don't even want to hold ourselves or others accountable. It's like sometimes it's a no-win game with people, with humanity. But we'll get there. We have the potential. I used to believe that we would get there. Now I'm like, it's up to people. It's a collective of individuals. If you have a team of 5 people, every person is coming with their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their own history, their own dreams, goals, and aspirations. When they can work together, it's beautiful. Can be. But when their goals, dreams, and aspirations come in conflict with another's, and that creates a tension, and then it becomes a battle of egos, and it just like derails the whole thing. Like, we have to be accountable and honest with self and vulnerable with self, and we have to also be in a position to extend it to others. We extend compassion to others, and we also give compassion to ourselves, and if it works, it works. If it's not, it's not. Anyway, 2 hours and 10 minutes. I really, really thought I'd just get on here and pull an alchemy card. I was going to talk a little bit about the whole, like, oh, but I guess these are my cards. Um, I saw you earlier. This is a lot of cards. These are a lot of cards. Bottom of the deck is Nebula, Fog, number 39. We had 49. Was 49 the Drowned King? I think it was, because I think I called it 69 and it was 49. Again, a little bit more Neptune energy. I love nebulousness. I love like the abstract. I also have an appreciation for the concrete. Um, but it's almost like sometimes it's almost like how much of a fog is legitimate. Like how much of it is actually like weird and vague or whatever, and how much is like this like lack of a desire. Because I think sometimes we want the truth, but I also think sometimes we want to be right, and sometimes our want to be right slash need to be right, and our want for the truth slash need to for the truth conflict. It's like sometimes we'd rather be right than know the truth, and so we'll buy into the lie that propagates the truth that we want, and it feels like maybe it's just like, but transitions are hard, right? Who's to say that? Because it's almost like, if you're watching a reading and the reader is like, oh, here's the world card, all of your karmic cycles are over, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But they're also like, well, pick your own timeline. It's fluid, take it as it resonates. And so you're like it resonates that that karmic cycle is over, but at the same time, like, is it over, or is it ending? So like, is it like, can I be like full on like come anything and everything because nothing karmic will ever come my way again, or is it like concluding? So it's almost like this weird gray area in this transitionary space where it's hard to navigate, right? How easy is it to have faith in someone who isn't you, and it's like you want to believe in them, but you don't know if you can. Like there have been so many scammers or whatever. It's like you want to donate to a charity, but you don't know which charities actually like do the things that they say they do, and which charities just like take people's money, and who has the time to look into every single charity. And even if like you do only find this or only find that, who's to say that that's not fabricated by the charity to get your money? Transitions in betweens are hard. I say that because for some reason the card that I saw in the deck that came out is Leucosis Whitening, and it's the snake around the egg. Very Mother of Wands energy, because the Mother of Wands is a snake around 4 eggs. But with the nebula fog at the bottom of the deck, um, it feels like the egg has already hatched. Like that's either the top or the bottom of this eggshell. It's already cracked here. So it's like it's hatched, but because of the fog, we don't like know if it's hatched or not. So we don't know if we proceed as if it is a complete no beginning, or if we still gotta like watch out for any lingering whatever from the previous cycle. And then I see the snake on this white rose, the red and white rose, sapientum, what, the flower of wisdom, number 59, 39, 49, 59, a lot of nines. And it's like it's coiled around this. Like, is this snake like, what kind of snake are you? Are you a garter snake? Or are you venomous? You know, if you bite me, am I gonna die or am I gonna be like inconvenienced? Is it gonna hurt? You know, and it's almost like, taste it and find out if it were an apple. Don't bite the snake. But I guess if I'm talking about eating animals, can I shame people for like eating snakes? Anyway, whatever this lightening is, this leucosis, it feels like it's already underway, but it's in a heavily veiled area. And again, it's almost like how much of that fog is truly, it's like how much of that fog is a projection of our own state of mental uncertainty. I wanted to use like unclarity, but I don't think unclarity is a word, or disclarity. Then I could have said like a lack of mental clarity, but I didn't want to say a lack of mental clarity. It's like the fog might be a projection from self because we don't, it's like, how do you know until you're in it? And then there's also a whole slew of cards that came out behind that. We have Argentum Vivum, which is Quicksilver, or Argentum Vivum, which is the silver of life. Um, Quicksilver, number 34. Number 43 is magic. That's 24. Like I said, I can't today. Number 24. We have Unus Mundus, synchronicity, number 68, which is interesting. What's inside the egg is already hatched. It's the other snake. It was a red and white rose. The red and white rose, but the red of the rose is the snake. The red of the rose is the snake wrapped around the white rose. And then we have Unus Mundus wrapped around each other. Unus Mundus is synchronicity, but what's that? One world, I think. I think Mundus is world, Unus is one. So with Quicksilver, it might have happened faster than we thought. It's almost like it might have happened faster than we anticipated, which is another thing that makes it so easy to shroud in this fog. It happened quicker than we thought it could happen. And so it's almost like we missed it. It's like if we're watching for a shooting star or a comet and like it comes early, faster than scientists predicted, and we're watching, we get out there in enough time, but someone distracts us. We turn our heads, we miss it. Then we look back, we don't see it, and then we're just like left waiting. We're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. We're like, okay, like any minute now. Like they told us it'll be coming here. Meanwhile, like the thing's been here and gone. It's already hatched. Not only is it hatched, it's also like producing the thing. Snakes are the theme today. We have Alchemical Wedding, which is the Heros Gamos, number 60. LX, yeah. And then we have 29, which is another 39, 49, 59, 29. We have the wedding of those two snakes. Now, from Unus Mundus, with this Quicksilver, they're given color. But they take on colors that aren't even necessarily there. This is all greens and yellows. It's like, where did the reds and pinks and blues come from? It's like the maturation of those snakes. As they grow, they just like the colors change. Just like a bird is born with like baby down, and then when it sheds the baby down, it grows into its adult plumage, and like that's where you get the colors from, right? There's also this like meeting of opposites, which it feels like it's bringing in that integration that Copper was talking about, like bring sensuality into the into the work. So it's like it's not completely give yourself over to carnal pleasures, but it's like don't completely forsake it either. And then we have sulfur sulfurous number 29 under that. This one is interesting. It's making me think of in the leucosis in this lightning. We've seen that that egg hatches quicker than we thought. And because the egg hatched quicker than we thought, it matures faster than we think, and it reaches this point at a speed that maybe we weren't necessarily prepared for. But the sulfur feels like an egg that doesn't hatch. And that's a very, very, very heavy energy. Like it feels like with that comet, we turn away, we miss it, and we just keep waiting. But we never leave. And so we spend the rest of our lifetime waiting. Maybe multiple lifetimes, depending if that's something that you believe in. Even like multiple lifetimes within the same incarnation, being like it's something that extends through many phases of our lives, right? We're a child and then a teenager, an adult, like a young adult, adult, and older adult. Like there's like if you ever get married, there's like your pre-married life and then your married life and whatever happens after that. Like all of those chapters, it's something that extends and runs all the way through. And it's just like this energy of like waiting. And it's because this it's like it feels like the snake is still wrapped around it, but it's like it's gone dark. um it's like it's still giving all of that time, energy, effort, attention, but nothing ever happens, which is not necessarily how I expected to end this. um but I guess that's also life. Sometimes we wait and we wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. Our eyes are always on the sky and we never, it's very like the person who was in the flood. It starts to rain and they're like, hey, like there's an evacuation notice, it's like things about to flood, so like you can drive, you can walk. The water starts to fall, there's the boat, there's the helicopter, there's the anything and everything. The divine is answering those prayers, and the person's like, God's got me, like you can go ahead, it's fine, like I believe my faith is strong enough. God will, like, I'll be fine. And then the person drowns, the drowned king. The person drowns and then they get to heaven and they're like, what gives? Like, I thought, like, you got me. And then they're like, well, we sent the boats, we sent the helicopters, we sent the, like, literally anything and everything. But your eye, the angel doesn't say that at the gate, but it's like that person's eye is so trained on the sky that they don't see right in front of them the answer, the solution to their prayers, their miracle, the thing that they have that will take them there. And again, like that's the Knight of Pentacles and the key that he had around his neck, the key that unlocked in the ground that trap door that the Queen of Pentacles pulled the pentacle out of. This is the one, it's like it's always trained on the sky. And so it just waits. And then at some point, it's like, divine, what gives? Like, why didn't you, whatever? And the divine is like, I sent you, like, all of this. Like, it happened. Anyway, that was the final message from the Wild Unknown Alchemy deck. Usually I would do it again to get just one card, but that feels succinct enough. Um, like I think sometimes we put we can pin a lot of hope on miracles, or we can put a lot of faith, we can invest a lot of faith in the future, but the future is just tomorrow's today, right? Like if we don't ever do anything, if we don't ever take the thing, how is it ever going to change? And we have to have enough space to like allow it to change. We have to be willing to receive the very thing that we're asking for, rather than getting to the end and then finding out that like I sent you like 552 million solutions and you rejected all of them, saying that I would do this, and I did. That was me doing that. But you're human, so how much can the divine fault us really? And I think that's something that like sometimes it makes it harder to discern certain things, maybe when we do have certain experiences where it's like, well, I did this and I did that before. We get a little burned, we get a little jaded. Divine timing is a thing. Maybe it wasn't its time. Also, there are things that like there are so many factors. Um, Maybe we do get redirected and it's time for us to pivot, but we don't. And so we miss it. We wait. It's like, I knew it was for me. Like, why did the divine forsake me? And it's like the opportunities were there. You just didn't take them. That's what those towers and dark nights were for. To open your eyes and to help you work through everything that is on your end that prevents you from receiving it. To remove the blockage from the star, to remove the blockage from the straw, to close that circuit, to allow electricity to flow, for the wheels to start moving and turning, for the lights to go off in a way, like in an area that was so dark before. Like that's the thing, and it was right in front of you the whole time. You just couldn't see it, which is interesting because that also sort of ties into, in a certain way, another thing that I've witnessed and probably experienced to some degree, but it's easier to see it as witnessed right now. Um, of like someone being somewhere that they didn't, it's like someone being somewhere that they fought to get out of for their whole life, only to realize that there was something there the whole time. That it's my journey buddy. It was my journey buddy when I was talking to her earlier, and that's what really like instigated me to make that post that I made. It was like only for her to find out that because she stayed where she stayed, because she made the choices and decisions that she did, it's now like she is perfectly, like beyond perfectly positioned, beyond prepared, beyond like has the connections that she needs to really do the thing. And it happened in the very place that like she tried to get out of. But it requires, it's almost like it required an abandon of that escapism. Saturn is in Pisces. So I don't know if Saturn in Pisces is going to stop us from like escaping. I don't know if Saturn in Pisces is going to necessarily be like, you can't escape this, I'm going to make you face reality. Or if Saturn in Pisces will be like, if you choose to face reality and see what's right in front of you, you will see the path that leads to the unfolding and the manifestation of your dreams. You had this dream when you were here, not knowing that it would be fulfilled here, but you thought for it to come true, you had to go somewhere else. And so you were going somewhere else because that's what your human logical reasoning mind, like that's where your eye always saw it, not knowing that you were placed exactly where you need to be. But now, because of everything that you've done, now because that you've removed the veil and the fog from your own eyes, you can see that the egg has hatched right in front of you in your hand. And you have everything that you need to be successful and to really get this going. But as long as we're running away, as long as we're forcing that separation while like playing at like this greater integration, we don't see it. It's the pentacle on the ground in front of us. It's the trap door with the key hanging around our necks. It's the garden and the gate from the energy oracle cards in a way. We don't see it. We don't realize it because we want to leave. We want to get out. We want to escape. And the very thing that is our ticket, it's right there. It's the dream that motivates us to do the thing, but it can be realized at home. Sometimes it can't. Take what resonates for you. Your path, your journey may be different. But it all means something. And that was the other thing about the Knight of Pentacles. It's like this whole time you've been acquiring the things. So when I ask you, hey, can you bake me a cake? Go looking for the eggs before you decide that you don't have any. Before you try to go out to the grocery store and they're like, well, they didn't have any eggs at the store, so we're not going to get a cake. It's like my grandma looking for them reading glasses. My grandma had something that she needed to read, and I have a bifocal, and there's like a 1.25, I think, magnification in the bottom of these. And I was like, well, you can use my glasses. My glasses, like, she can get by with them, but they don't really work for her. And so she was going to ask somebody else to use their readers, but she couldn't like get them in time. And so she went up with my glasses and she read her paper, only for at the end of the night for her to like reach in her pocket and realize that the glasses were there the whole time in her pocket. She intentionally grabbed them because she knew she was going to need them to read. So she grabbed them and put them in the one place that she'd find them, her pocket. She didn't feel them when she looked in there, but she was like, oh, like I forgot my glasses at. She was like, I forgot my glasses. I was like, where? In the car? I'll go get them. She was like, at home. The glasses were in her pocket. Why am I calling my grandma out? My glasses were right here for hours one day because I do this when I don't need them. And then I was gonna like find something on my phone, and I'm like, where are my glasses? Like, I'm not seeing them here. I'm not seeing them there. I'm not seeing them anywhere. I can't find my glasses, so I don't do the thing on my phone. I'm watching YouTube or anime, probably anime, on my TV. And then I rest my hand here, and I'm like, oh, my glasses have been here the whole time. Or you do one of these and you forget your glasses. But it's like when we don't, it's like again, it gets so, I mean, maybe that plays back into the neuroplasticity when after we form that habit, after we form that pattern, it gets easy to make a mistake because we're not as vigilant or aware. We don't pay as much attention to the details because it's like, we got it. But with glasses, it's like, be they here or wherever on my body, I can feel them when they're there, but my body will get used to their presence. And so eventually I'm going to stop feeling it and not even notice that like they're right here. Like I can feel it against my skin. I can feel it tugging at my shirt. You know what I mean? But like that's what it's almost like how the nose will sort of like stop smell how we stop smelling certain scents. It's not because the nose doesn't pick it up. It's because the brain is like, oh, like you don't have to worry about this. And it almost goes back to our fight or flight survival mode. It's like this is something that is characteristic of home. This is something that like we don't have to be aware of. So like it's not a threat. We don't have to worry about it. We forget. We don't smell whatever anymore because like we're used to it. We don't feel whatever anywhere anymore because we're used to it. We've grown accustomed and accommodated to it. Accustomed and accommodated. Yeah. We've grown accustomed to it. We've accommodated, acclimatized, acclimated, whatever. Um, it's like, the eggs are where the eggs always are. You can bake the cake. It was that Knight of Pentacles. We've been acquiring, we've been assembling. And then she told me this, and I was like, well, holy confirmation. Um, but also at the same time, it's like there were a lot of things that I was wanting. I say a lot. There were a few things that I was wanting um, that I discovered at home last year. And so it threw a huge wrench in my like, I'm gonna move and do this and do that, and then find all this other stuff. And the divine spirit, the universe, literally life was like, this is right here at home. If you want to go, you can still go. There's nothing necessarily keeping you here. Like there's a whole wide world for you to explore. But if this is your sole and only reason for leaving, just know that you don't have to. For this reason, you don't have to. If there's another reason, go for it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what I want anyway, right? I believe that the path will unfold wherever I go. I'm pretty like low maintenance in some ways, but incredibly high maintenance for some people in other ways, just because of the stuff that I don't like really tolerate. Um, sometimes you sometimes you tolerate it way more than you ever think, and you're like, why? How? Other times you don't, and you're like, okay, yeah, that's the standard anyway. We don't necessarily again, but it's like just because some of those things I found at home, that doesn't mean I don't still. Again, it's like I can still go somewhere else. I can still move. I can still relocate. I can still do all of that. But it's just for me to know that that doesn't have to be the reason why I do it. So honestly, at first it played out as like a, well, now I don't have anything pushing me out. Now there isn't anything so pressing that I need to leave and get out of here. But at the same, then it was like, okay, well, like now I know that I don't need to, but do I still want to? And it was a little bit like, what do I want? Like, I get to make a choice, I get to choose. And it was good to know that, like, it was good to know that it's here, even though it was relatively new. But it's like, it's good to know that it's here because, like, now I can make a more informed choice and decision. And now, like, if I do move somewhere, if I do relocate and I find it, I'm not living and believing this mistruth that I had to leave home to find it. I know the truth that it was at home. So it doesn't warp anything, or it doesn't insert this truth that I don't necessarily need to have and hold. Now it's like I can make an informed choice and I don't have any misconceptions because of information that I didn't have. But also that means that I have to actually like sit with that decision a little more too. Because then it's like, well, like, do I need to leave? And then there were things that I found that I actually enjoyed about being home. Being home was never my plan. I was just gonna finish my degree, get finish those classes that I need to finish, get my degree, and then go somewhere. Did not plan on being here for 4 years. Well, 3, I guess technically. Didn't even necessarily want to be here for 1 year. But now it's like, I don't know. I don't, like I said, I don't need to leave for the same reasons anymore. So there are some pluses, there are some benefits of being home. Where will the universe, where will life, where will Patrick take me next? I don't know. All right, Elemental Oracle. Give me one card to shut this down before we hit 3 hours. My throat is so dry. Ah. Whew. Okay. I was like, whoo, hopefully ain't no booty crack. Slip out. Booty crack out. There's that electricity at the bottom of the deck again. Electricity and magic. It's closing the circuit. That it's because I guess it's like with that information not known, that circuit would have always been open. And we go where things are flowing for electricity to flow, for a flow and a current is flow. For a current, for flow to be established, the loop has to be, or the circuit has to be closed. Electricity is basically flow. It's the result of flow. When there is no blockage, when everything is connected, you get electricity, you get flow, you get pain. So will you get a certain yield from 30%, 40%, which is not completely accurate because that's the best. Yeah. Will we get some result from partial flow? Yes. Is it going to be the same as like our maximum? No. Is it to live life always going for the maximum, highest, best? Not necessarily. Because if you're good where you are, like we ain't all got to be gajillionaires. We don't all need that much money to find or feel whatever is for us to find or feel. Um, and again, that goes back to that tree. Like with 30% of the soil being watered, will the tree grow? Sure. It's not going to be completely dead, but if all of that can penetrate so that more of the roots could be exposed to the nutrients, it would grow a lot fuller and it would be gorgeous. And it might be closer to that thing that we think the age of Aquarius is going to be rather than how it can easily go, which is very like tribal, very almost regressive in a way. But what do I know? All right, Elemental Oracle. Thank you. It looks like breath is the card that comes out. Bottom of the deck is desert, which is solitariness. Number 13. Breath is life. Number 27. We have life that fell out, and we have the desert at the bottom of the deck. This is it's like life is the 100% or more of the tree getting roots. It's life. And like there are still like cacti and like jackrabbits and like there's still life in the desert. And if this is a lot more than we're used to, we may see this as abundance. And again, I think sometimes we can get trapped by the potentials and like trying to get the highest and the best or whatever to the point where we don't see the fullness of what where we are has to offer us. Um, but like, you know, and then there's the moon, darkness under the desert. And it feels like it's playing on that again. Like it's almost like that's that desert imagery. If we don't know of everything outside of this desert, like if we're not aware of all of this because of that shroud of darkness, we treat that as if it's the Holy Land or the promised land. But this is what's on offer. It requires us to take that off. When we take that off, that's when things can get a little, because then we actually have to see things. We almost lose the convenience of truth a little bit. And iron does sharpen iron. Truth hones truth. And what resonates as true for one and what rings as true for one might be untrue for another. But the that relative untruth will then in turn strengthen their truth. So it seems like the easiest, most surefire way to navigate this and to know is to be honest and to really look and to really see and to face uncomfortability. I'm also going to pull a final um, I see yo in my mind. Lafruma. That's the cycle rune, which is interesting because Venus sensuality. I'll pull a final Lafruma since I used it too. Lafruma, what is the last thing that you want to say? You're closing it out today, buddy. So a lot of that today. Chalmer and Hod. 27. 27 was the card that came out life. It was, I literally just saw it, already forgot. It meant life. Oof, I want to look, but I already forgot. It was the card that came out. And Chalmer. Chalmer is number 36. This is a 9-9 or a 27-9 and a 36-9. This is us protecting. It's almost like when we protect ourselves from things that we don't want to see, when we intentionally close our eyes to things that we don't want to see, we also leave ourselves open to missing the things that we want, right? It almost goes back to like when the meteor passes by, we turn our head and we miss it. And then we wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. But it's almost like these things are seemingly connected. It's almost like, we're asking for things that we can't receive if we don't also accept something else, right? It's almost like um wanting something but not wanting water or to deal with water, but what's the thing? Maybe it's like it's wanting a thriving garden or wanting to be a successful gardener, but not wanting to like get down on your hands and knees, not wanting to get dirty, not wanting to water anything. And it's like we want the result and we want to embody the result. Like we want to be that, but we don't necessarily want any of the things that come with the territory. And so it creates this uh interference, crossroads, conundrum. I can't think of the word. Impasse, maybe. Contradiction. Like the thing itself is a contradiction. And it's almost like, again, going back to the things that whether we see it or not, if we could take an honest look at it, we would realize the contradiction. But when we can't be honest, we find other things to blame it on. Right. That would be like me leaving home for this reason, not knowing that I don't have to leave for that reason. I can still choose to leave, but if I leave, I'm leaving for the right reason rather than like the convenient reason. Almost, it's almost like that type of energy. Bottom of the deck is raid, which is the journey. There's almost like, again, it's like going to the grocery store trying to get the eggs to bake the cake. You don't find any eggs at the grocery store, but you never look in the cupboards to see, or the refrigerator to see that you have eggs. So you don't make a cake. We don't make cakes because we don't have eggs, but we have eggs at home. But we don't want to see it. We don't go looking for it. We miss it. It passes us by. I think another way to read this is that it's like there are certain things that we might be hesitant of or fearful of or afraid of on this journey, certain unknowns. But this Agashama is like protection. Almost like it almost then brings in this energy of like, if you knew that you had a 100% chance at success, what would you do? Sometimes it's like, okay, well, if you tell me that I have a 100% chance, this is where it comes. It's almost like down to the person, but more so than the person, it's down to the way that we process through things, because we're going to process through this in two ways, because simplicity. I know it's more complex. One way to process that statement was like, I'm going to be 100% successful at something. So what would I do? What could I do? But when we think about the things that we could do, we think about the stuff that we're already good at. We choose something that we believe we have a 100% chance of success at. We stay in the box, in the comfort zone. because that's how we process that success rate. That's one way to process through it and like approach that problem. The other way is I can pick anything and be successful at it because my success is guaranteed. So like that'd be a cool way for me to like pick up a new skill or to like do this thing that I've always wanted to do or to just like go completely like bonkers wild crazy and test the limits of what the universe can fulfill in a single lifetime, right? It's like Neo breaking the matrix from inside the matrix almost. And so it's like they're that like it's almost like in the first way that it was processed, that person, it's like maybe multiple people are offered that. And maybe they know each other to some degree. And somebody's like an astronaut because that's what they wanted to do, but they're like you can't pass any the physical, the psych, like all of those tests, all of that training that like astronauts have to do, like you were always so sickly. Like, how are you doing that? And then they get like mad. They can get mad, jealous, envious, whatever, because someone else is an astronaut. And they're like, well, I'm over here just like doing something mundane or basic, and then they get mad at or they get envious, they get jealous, and that creates some kind of animosity targeted at the other person. They get mad, well, like you didn't tell me I could do anything, or you didn't tell me I could do this. They get mad at the divine, but they never like, and it's again like the purpose isn't to get mad at themselves, but it's never like I put that stipulation on me because the prompt was if you could do anything and you were guaranteed success, what would you do? The way that it broke down and processed in our own brain was like, oh, like if it's guaranteed success, then it has to be something that I'm good at because that's the only way that you can guarantee success. So the answer to the riddle is to pick something that I'm good at, paint myself into a box, into a corner, and someone else is like going wild. You know what I mean? But the other way to read that is like in all of the unseen hurdles and challenges, there will be a certain amount of protection. So it's almost like if you were making an investment and your investment is protected, there's the more traditional, the more surefire where like you want to make sure that you invest your money in a company that has a portfolio or a profile that's like blah 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 blah. That's the safe thing to do to make a lot of money. And so you do the safe thing, or you can be, I think they call them angel investors. You could take a chance on the thing that's like really exciting that you see a lot of potential in. There are a million and one people that have ideas and like 100,000, 1,000, 100, 5, 10 people, like 10 of those actually come to fruition. It's a lot riskier, sure. According to the books, it's a lot riskier. But if you know that your investment is protected, like why not? You know what I mean? It comes down to like it feels like more of the burden of that is on the self. And again, it's not to blame the self, but there's so much agency and there's so much power to be reclaimed in that. Rather than, well, you didn't tell me and that person is doing this. It's like the externalizing of all that, creating the web that we get caught in ourselves. It's like no one put those restrictions and limitations on you. Like I said anything. You know what I mean? The divine is like, you are safe, you are protected, you are this, you are that, but it's our own minds, it's what we see of the world, it's all of these other things that we come across that get us to put boundaries and restrictions and limitations on what we can do. Or it's like maybe it's like, we do leave home to go and find the thing only to not be happy. And it's like I uprooted my life. I came all the way out here. I left everything that I've ever known. And then it's like, and then there's this anger at whatever. And it's like, well, girl, like, ain't nobody tell you you had to do all that. Like, it was available. Like, what you're looking for was available where you were. You didn't have to completely uproot your life and you didn't have to do this and do that to go and get it. But do we want to take responsibility for that? More often than not, no. But when we do, again, it's like that's where I don't know. It's just like that level of honesty and agency breeds a certain amount of, I don't want to say success. Um, Maybe I'll say like it aligns us so much more, so much easier, so much quicker to the path of us being, doing, getting where whatever we want to get or go wherever we want to go or be whoever we want to be. It's like it's almost like it's easy to believe that free will and choice doesn't exist when you never make any choices. When you follow like a script, a predetermined path, when you're just doing the thing that everybody else is doing, when instead of like it's like when instead of leading yourself, you're led by others, it's easy to feel like you have no power, no agency, no whatever. Is it because it's true? It could be. It could very much so be true. But it's almost like until you really look and see, we don't know. And again, like we're not meant to know everything. We know the things and we get to know the things that are meant for us to know. We all get where we're going in our own time eventually. And there are things that are very worthwhile and very important and very worth doing that we might not see as worth doing when our eye is trained over here. But like all of it's important. And there are different paths for different people. There are a multitude of truths that spawn from less truths, right? It's almost like, we're talking about rectangles. Rectangles have four sides, that's true. Squares have four sides. Trapezoids have four sides. Rhombuses have four sides. You can create any kind of shape with four sides, and as long as it's got four sides, it's a rectangle. But we don't have to live our life going back to the box. We don't have to live our lives in squares. No one said that all four sides have to be the same length. It's like you're thinking of squares, which are rectangles, but we're talking about rectangles in general. You don't have to keep constructing squares. But anyway, in that metaphor, the rectangle has four sides was like the big truth, the bigger, the larger truth. And then the like, well, like squares have four sides, and trapezoids have four sides, and rhombuses have four sides, and diamonds have four sides, which are like rhombuses. Like all of those are like different truths that spawn from that one greater truth, which is right. And then that leads you, once you understand a little bit more, all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Because part of the definition of a square is that it has four, it's like the definition of a square equals four equal sides. The definition of a rectangle equals four sides. So by definition of the square, it's automatically a rectangle because that four sides appears in both. The thing that separates them is that equal part. That's where we can sort of get lost and turned around. And again, it's, I don't know, it's been like 3 hours. So I kind of want to, sometimes when I'm on for this long, I kind of want to just keep going. I don't know if I'd ever necessarily admit to loving like hearing myself talk, but when it comes to stuff like this, I feel like, yeah, like I can like just go and go and go and go. You know what I mean? Not that I don't appreciate people when they're here. Um, I almost want to pull the. I've been wanting to pull the Idrisil Norse divination cards before and after, or just to see what there's someone in there who like guards secrets or something like that. Just to see like what is now open and available. But I guess I don't really have to. It is a largely exciting time, but it's just like it's almost like as we're going along and as we're moving forward, it's not to breed or to create um situations like a mental situation where we go into like analysis paralysis where we overthink and overanalyze everything. It's more so just like, you know, if there's a kid and a parent and the parents, like don't talk to strangers, be home by this time. Maybe it's a little, the kid is like a teenager. It's like, be home by this time, remember everything that we've taught you, but, go out and explore life, have fun. You're going to make mistakes. You might fall, you might do this, you might do that. Just don't, in your pursuit or in your exploration of everything, don't forget like everything that we taught you. But that don't forget everything that we taught you is not like don't question anything that we've ever said. It's just like, like be mindful and be aware. Like live life, explore, have fun, be free, but you know, be wild, be crazy, but when you're doing your risk assessments, like certain things that like no 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 are gonna be like whatever, maybe avoid them. I feel like the parent would be like, just don't do it because you're gonna regret it. And sometimes we do it and we don't regret it. Sometimes we do it and we do regret it. Sometimes we like to F around and we most definitely find out. But it's not to be constrictive necessarily or restrictive in a way. It's just for us to be mindful as we move forward. So anyway, I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And more than that, I hope that you get whatever you need. I honestly like hope that you can find people who can do it with you. Um, I guess if you want it, if you don't want it, then whatever you want, I hope for you. Right? I don't know you. I don't whatever. I mean, I might know you, but I don't know that I'm. Anyway, I'm not in the business of deciding what is for people to want or do or not want because there are people who love pie. I'm not one of those people. I love people who love pie. And I love people who go ham on Pie Day, which is today. I just don't like pie. But there's one person in particular in my life who's like crazy about Pie Day. And every year I look forward to seeing the antics that he gets up to. Sometimes it kind of makes me wish I liked pie a little bit more, but I'm just like, I'm not a pie guy. Could I eat cake? Yeah, but is it cake day? No. I get vicarious appreciation for the day through the people that madly enjoy it. So anyway, happy Pie Day as well. I don't think I necessarily brought any. There were some things that came, I guess, full circle. Well, full circle. The circle of life, you know, and pi is an irrational number. The irrationality of pi symbolizes the irrationality of the world that we live in, that we try to make sense out of, that we do our best to, follow whatever. But at the end of the day, we know 3.141592785930941132. I only know what 3.141592.7, I believe. That's as many digits of pi as I know. But apparently there are only 12 digits of pi. My second, no, I have two I have two Pi Day favorites. First, Vi Hart makes a video like every Pi Day since like 2012. Love that. And then like the Pie Guy does something like for Pi Day. I look forward to both of those things. Anyway, all right, I'll catch y'all later. It's been long enough. Bye.